going to be taking another look at you tonight. But first, I wanted to show you that picture that I referred to when we were 13 years in our homeschool journey. In the upper right, you see it turned out to be 6 families that we got together with, 5 others, plus ourselves. We organized it ourselves. When you graduate in homeschooling, you're on your own, right? You might do it with the co-op sport group, but we did it with several friends. And then when we were at the reception, there was this picture with my son with his graduation cap and gown on, and there's his little brother, 5 years old, wearing the hat, looking cute as can be. And that's that moment when I realized, okay, 13 years seems like a long time, but we're halfway there. we still got some more to go. But then, like I said, 2 years ago, we finished the literal marathon, 26.2 years, and wrapped it up, closed our homeschool, and continue to love the community. All right, we're going to give away 2 books tonight. We're going to give away Psalms to Know Early and Truths to Know Early. So the first one, at first winner gets their pick, and that is Marissa something Tully? Natoli? All right. Your pick. All right, she took Psalms to Know Early. So now Truths to Know Early. Rachel, who's the winner for this one? Christiana Rose. Christiana Rose. All right. You can accept it on her behalf. That's legal. Okay, so we got an announcement here by my lovely wife, Rachael.
Okay, so I'm not mic'd, but I can be really loud. I mentioned that child a couple of times, and a few of you have come up and gone, yeah, let's do that. Takes one to know one. So I was that child. I've given birth to at least 2. Survey says maybe more than that. I would like to propose an impromptu gathering, if anybody who wants to talk about the TC thing, tomorrow at 4 at the gazebo. No pressure, come if you want to. We can just sort of talk through it. I am a that child advocate. I believe they're a blessing. I think they're amazing. If you don't believe me, come and let me convince you, please. If you're interested, tomorrow at 4 o'clock at the gazebo, I'll see you then.
And we've cleared that through John, so it's an official part of the schedule for tomorrow. All right, let's do some review. So in chapter 1, Dr. Malachi says, okay, let's take a look and see what's wrong with you, because we got to get your heart ready for the Messiah. And he says, your problem is you don't even think I love you. And he says, Jacob I loved, Esau I hated, just to give you some perspective. So as homeschool parents, as homeschool families, the first and best thing we can do is to make sure that we have a heart for God. Refer to Deuteronomy 6, the greatest commandment in the whole world. To love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to teach that to your children 4 times. When you rise up, when you lie down, when you sit and walk along the way. So basically, when you put them to bed, when you get them up in the morning, when you're sitting down for all those meals, and when you're driving along in the minivan. All right? 4 great times to have Deuteronomy 6 moments. Next, that's the H. Then E, it's a lot of work to be a parent. It's a lot of work to be a husband and wife. It's a lot of work to be a homeschool parent. Good grief, we're going to take on all this responsibility. I want you to enjoy this responsibility, because Dr. Malachi said the priest did their holy righteous duties and saw it as a burden. They sniffed at it contemptuously. We don't want that to happen to us as homeschool families. We want to love this. We want to view this as the best job on the planet. What an amazing opportunity. So don't miss it. And then last night, we looked at the A in our acronym, and that is to adore the people, your husband, your wife, and these kids. Because Dr. Malachi said in chapter 2, look, I wanted godly offspring, but you're being unfaithful to your wife. I don't want that. I want you to love her. And so in a similar way, Husbands, love and adore your wife. Let your kids see you chase her around the kitchen table. Say, kiss her, daddy, and you give her a big kiss right in front of the kids. Wives, love, respect, and submit to your husband. Those are beautiful biblical words. And then everybody, mom, dad, let your kids know you like them. Smile at them. Give them the thumbs up. Let them know you're proud of them, because it'll mean the world to you. I heard several stories last night and even this morning about people's relationships with their dad. Some on purpose telling me, and some just kind of talking, and suddenly we're talking about their dads, alive and dead. And it's amazing the impact dads in particular have on their kids. But mom, you know you are irreplaceable. Nobody can replace you. There's no substitute. So love these people that God has given you. So now, oh, and by the way, I put this picture in this slide to give you a teaser for Saturday. I had several folks come, a handful of people coming to me last night and said, oh, I thought you were going to show the video of when you were dancing so really good. So come Saturday and I'll show you the video. All right, so here's the question to tee things up for tonight, for the R in our acronym. And I want to hear a little bit of feedback from you. Think homeschool, parent work, okay? You're a homeschooled mom and dad, you're homeschooling. What are the things that you want to keep control on? You want to hold on tightly. You're having a hard time saying, God, it's yours. Okay? What are the things that you're struggling with in that regard? I'm sorry? How long do I have? It's a long list. Curriculum, okay.
Neatness of
The house, you're living in the house all the time and it's not staying perfectly neat. Oh boy, yeah, that's systems, okay. That's a good start. What else are you wanting to have control over? It's got to be just right. Letting them grow up. Who said that? Yeah, letting them grow up. It's kind of cute when they're, those first 2 years are amazing. So much happens, so much child development. But then they become, you can start having conversations. And you want everything to go a certain way. You want them to make all the right decisions. I got my answer that I'm going to share for the end. What else is some of the hardest things to give up, to not want to have control over? Yes, in the back. Okay, well, sticking up for them, holding up, looking out for them? Okay. There was another hand. Traveling. Couple more.
Are we doing enough?
I'm sorry?
Am I doing enough?
Oh, there we go. Am I messing the kids up? Am I doing this right? Am I doing enough? I'll touch on that right now. As a senior, if your homeschool student is about to become a senior, this is the summer before their senior year, my advice, actually do less than more of their senior year. The temptation is to try and cram it all in. We only got 1 more year left. Oh boy, we are so behind. I haven't taught them how to balance a checkbook, how to do this, how to do that, how to fix a flat tire. There's so much in life to learn. You're not going to get it all in. You're really not going to get it all in. One more. And then I'll tell you mine. Yes? Juggling everything. That's hard work. Trying to juggle it all, you wish you could just have more control of it. Another way I'll ask this question for myself in terms of the answer I'll give you is, it really goes that more closer to what he was saying, is I want my kids to turn out a certain way. And ultimately, I don't have control of that because they're going to grow up from these cute little 1 and 2-year-olds that are just cute as can be. Then we're going to start having conversations that are pretty easy, and you know what? I can say, time out, you're in bed, we're done for the day. Then they get a little older, and it's like, okay, I can't just spank them soundly and put them to bed. How are we going to do this? I've got to have a real conversation. They're asking why, and it's legitimate why, and I want to control their lives. So, what does Dr. Malachi have to say for us? Dr. Malachi is going to tell us that I want you to rely on God for the results, as opposed to thinking all this work is in vain. Don't start thinking you're going to mess them up. Don't start thinking you're in control of the outcome. Rely on God for how your kids are going to turn out. Now, you got an important role in this. But ultimately, God's going to make that happen. Now, why in the world do I have a picture of a frog on here? Any guesses? Rachael had an acronym for heart in her book. We have an acronym HEART for tonight. Think of frog as an acronym. There you go. Fully rely on God. So that's one way if you want to remember it at one of your take-homes. I already mentioned this phrase. This is one of my favorite phrases that I enjoyed early in our homeschool. And I'm going to share some stories with you tonight of this actually happening, where God fills in gaps so big that I can't fix it. I can't solve it. I can't make it work. But he's going to drive a school bus right through this. And I love hearing other people's stories. I love sharing our stories. We have 7 kids, and we got at least 7 stories. And I'm going to share some of them with you tonight. But first, let's see what Dr. Malachi actually says here. In chapter 3, verse 13, he says, "Your words have been hard against me, says the Lord. But you say, how have we spoken against you? You have said, it is vain to serve the Lord. What is the profit of our keeping his charge, or of walking in mourning before the Lord of hosts?" So you remember, these are the priests. They've got holy duties. They're doing this for Israel. And the very first thing they say is, God, you don't even love us. Whoa, time out. I want you to love me. I love you. Trust me. Then they're sniffing at this thing, and the work is a burden. I don't like my job. And then he says, by the way, you need to look in the mirror, because the problem isn't these people that you dislike. You need to take heed of your own spirit. You're the problem. You have the wrong attitude towards these people. You don't like them. You need to like these people. You need to love them. You need to be faithful to them. And then the priests are saying, and you know what? All this work we're doing, it's all in vain anyways. Of what use is this? These people are horrible. They're constantly turning against you, God, and God says, no, this is not in vain. And so as homeschool families, I want you to realize the same thing. It's a lot of work with a lot of people that don't cooperate all the time, that grow up and talk back, that have their own opinions, and maybe they don't make you look good. When we first started, there was crying in our homeschool. Anybody ever have tears? Yeah, we were kicking and screaming. Our first kid was kicking and screaming, and we're just thinking, this just doesn't seem like it's supposed to be this way. And we were sure, because he wasn't reading when he was 6 years old, that he was doing it on purpose to prove we were bad homeschoolers. So I always like to share this piece of information too. So this is a tangent. This part's for free. When do you think kids should read? At what age? When they're ready. Give me an actual number. I'm sorry? Okay, I heard a whole bunch of numbers. Between 4 and 10. Okay, that's a good answer. I like that answer, because here most people will usually say 5 or 6. You know, that's kind of what most people think. That's certainly what we thought when we started. Your kids got to read by 6 years old. Well, let's kind of do a reality check. When does a kid, I've seen a lot of babies here, a lot of 3, 6, 9, 12-month-olds, so I bet you know the answers to these. When does a kid typically roll over? 3 or 4 months, okay? Let's just say 3 months plus or minus 1. When do they sit up? 6 or 7 months plus or minus 3. When do they walk? A year plus or minus 4 months. Some kids walk when they're 9 months. Whew. Some wait till I have one grandkid that waited till they're 17 months to walk. Still in the bell curve, but you see this bell curve is just getting bigger. when does a kid read? She hit it right on the nail. 8 years plus or minus 3. So yes, some kids read when they're 5. Some kids read when they're 11. But they're all in that curve. We had everybody in the whole spectrum. Our oldest didn't read till he was 10 something. The second one read when he was 6 out of fear. Well, I don't want that to happen to me. So that was a quick bonus because that sets homeschool families free to realize they're going to read when they're ready. And typically, it's about 8, plus or minus 3 years. So if you can teach your kids to love reading and love learning, you just answered his question. Your kids are going to be fine. You don't have to fit it all in by the time they're 18. But if you can make sure they love reading, love learning, you have succeeded as a homeschool parent. All right? So this is what Dr. Malachi says. I'm going to share 3 stories with you of 3 of our kids. I could share 7 stories, but we don't have enough time for that. So this is Charles, our oldest, and he's our guinea pig. You know, when he was about to enter 9th grade, I started going to support group meetings. How do you do this high school thing? And so I'm going, absorbing, taking notes, trying to figure it out, because I'm the administrator of the school. I'm trying to take that burden from my wife, so I got to figure this out so we can get a high school transcript and get a plan together. So as we're going along high school, Charles started partaking in Civil Air Patrol, and he decided he wanted to go to the Air Force Academy. Well, that's a pretty lofty goal. That's not a gimme. It's not necessarily guaranteed to happen just because you want to. So we started down that path. He took the right courses. He was in Civil Air Patrol, got their highest award, the Billy Mitchell Award. He went to Civil Air Patrol camps. He played on a homeschool football team because you have to letter in a sport. We got to know our local congressman. We got to know other families who got an appointment by that congressman. We were doing everything right to increase the odds of making this happen. So we're going along. He finishes his junior year, and the summer between his junior and senior year, he got invited, key word, he didn't choose, he got invited to go to a football sports camp in Colorado Springs on the Air Force Academy. And we're thinking, hot dog, this is going to be great towards the path we're trying to get here. So he goes, and I've got to back up and tell you about how Charles does when he goes to other camps. So he went to Patrick Henry, he went to Summit Ministries, he did several other summer camps, and when Charles went away to camp, you didn't hear from him. He's the life of the party on camp. And then he comes home and tells us all about it. First day at this camp, we get a phone call from Charles. Surprise, hey, how you doing? Oh, just checking, seeing on how you guys are doing. Checking on us? Is everything okay? Oh, yeah, just hanging out tonight. Okay. We finished the conversation. 1 or 2 nights later, he calls again. Is everything okay? Yeah, just seeing how you guys are doing, what you up to tonight. You're at camp, dude, what's going on? And we're feeling like something's going on. We got to talk to this guy when he gets back. So he gets home, and Charles, in his unusual way, instead of being talk, telling us all about it, life of the party, he's Mr. Solitude, not talking, and we're just, what is wrong with this guy? Well, then it's time for us to go to dinner in late July, early August to plan his senior year. We got to think about graduation, what are the last courses you're going to take, what's the game plan to get to the academy and get the appointment. And he sits across the table from us and says, hey, Mom, Dad, I've really been thinking and praying about this, and I just don't think God is calling me to the Air Force Academy anymore. Well, inside, as homeschool parents thinking, we don't have plan B, we are sweating bullets and trying not to show it. And we're just thinking, oh, that's great, Charles, and what are we going to do instead? I just don't know. Well, we don't either. We need help because we can't mess up the first kid. And here we are doing this. We're just like, we got to grasp control. We got to make this work. We're going to figure this out. We're planners. We're people that get it done. We're overachievers. We'll figure this out. But here's some other things you need to know. Charles wasn't college material, certainly not at that point in his life. And so I'm thinking, okay, college is probably not a real good option for him. We haven't really talked about vocations that he could do. Oh, maybe he can just join the Air Force. That might be a good solution. And we're just racking our brains trying to figure out what in the world to do. So we kind of limp our way through the fall, just not going, oh boy, God, we need direction, and we're vacillating between grabbing control and opening the hands to God. Well, we had gone to homeschool conferences, and we had seen this gap year program called Impact 360 at some places, and we thought, well, oh, I'm sorry, I just got ahead of the story. We went to visit a couple colleges, and the one thing I like to say is the first college we ever went on is the only college I never have ever mentioned ever, and I never will, because it was the worst college visit ever. I still wonder, did they not know we were showing up with other families to look at their facility and meet people? It was a disaster, and I left as a first-time dad going on our first college visit with my first son thinking, if this is how they're all going to be, this is going to be really discouraging. This was absolutely horrible. So that was our first experience. So I'm already down there, and so then we decided, well, let's go visit this place called Impact 360. We've seen them at some homeschool conferences. So we go down there, and as a dad, I'm really not very hopeful about anything. I'm pretty down about what to do with my son, how to make this work. You know, the first college visit was horrible. So we go there in south of Atlanta. We sit in the lobby, and we're just kind of looking around before things started, and I kind of looked at Charles, and I said, you know, this place kind of reminds me of Chick-fil-A. Just had that feeling about it. And they come in, and they say, welcome to Impact 360. We're a partnership with Union University in Jackson, Tennessee, and Chick-fil-A. And I stood up at attention. Well, keep talking. And they told us the whole spiel, and we thought, in the end, this is a great fit for our son. It's at least a 1-year gap to give us time to figure something out. And this is where God began to fill in that gap for us. Impact 360 was only 4 years old at the time. This was 2009, so they were a new program. Chick-fil-A's got a good reputation, but we didn't know that much about gap year programs. And it turns out the way this works is professors come from different Christian universities and different places in society that have an influence and have a platform, and they spend 3 to 4 days on campus with the students. Much like Waypoint, it's a gap year where they're learning Bible, they're learning worldview, they're learning cultural issues, they're taking the Chick-fil-A servant leadership program, they go on a 1-month mission trip to Brazil, and they get 18 hours of credit with Union University. Well, and it sounded like a great program. Well, one of the beauties is a professor from the King's College in Manhattan came as one of the visiting professors, fell in love with Charles. They just connected, bonded brothers, Dr. Anthony Bradley. And he said, Charles, you're the kind of student we want at King's. And I can help you get in, you can be my TA. So he helped him get into a school that we had never heard of before, helped him apply, and Charles was excited to make it happen, helped him get scholarships, and suddenly our Charles is in New York City, which was right up his speed. Trust me, this was one of those kids, the kind with the big wings that you just say, please get out of the nest. You know, you're just messing everything up. You're making the house a disaster. And New York City was his speed. He thrived there, got his degree, and then, just to encourage all you homeschool families again, he was the one that was late reading, just to prove we couldn't homeschool him. Got his college degree, and then after his bachelor's degree, he gets married, they move to Phoenix, he's teaching at a classical school, and he learns Latin on his own. Okay? This was all after college. Then he decides, this was kind of cool, I'll go to graduate school. So he goes to graduate school, and he's the one that's 1 year away from finishing up his PhD in languages, of all things. Okay, the kid that waited till he was 10 to read. So there is hope. The neurons really don't connect until later on. Okay? just trust me there. God filled in gaps. This was a huge faith-building moment for Rachel and I in our homeschooling journey, because it was we were panicked the summer of 2008, and by the summer of 2009, he's got a plan for Charles. And then at the end of that next summer, 1 year later, after the gap year program, he's got a bona fide plan, college bound, and it looks like we're on a good path. And the rest, lots of other stories like that, but we didn't make that happen. We didn't know which way to turn. We had never heard of Impact 360 or the King's College. So that was story number one. I told you a little bit about child number two. He was the one that with a $7,000 gap. He asked for 10, and they gave him 7. So that's the short version of that story. This next story I'll tell you is about Molly in the middle. She's our number 5 child. Is that right? No, 4. 4 would be in the middle of 7. So she's our 4th kid. She's the girl in the bottom right of that picture with the arrow pointing to her. And can anybody guess what country she's in right there? India, yes. So Molly always had a heart to be a missionary, and she did several mission trips with our family, with other organizations, and so she's further down the path. So by the time we're with the 4th child, we got a little bit of a feel for how to do this, launching them and graduating them and getting plans in place. So during her junior year, January of her junior year, she and I went up to Minnesota to go to this, it's more than a gap year program, it was a 2-year program at the time called Rivendell. I was talking with somebody at dinner one time about it. It's now in North Carolina called Excel College. But it was a really cool program where you have a cohort of 30 plus or minus students. They spend all 2 years together. They learn all the subjects and why they're connected. They do leadership programs, and it sounded really cool. My big memory is we watched the Super Bowl that January or early February, whenever it was, in Minnesota, when we went on that particular year. So they're very homeschool friendly. And as we were leaving that interview, they said, hey, just so you know, we're very homeschool friendly, and so if Molly wants to come and start Rivendell this fall instead of doing her senior year at home, we're totally cool with that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, well, thank you, that's very good. I'm glad you like homeschoolers so much, but of course she'll be home for her senior year. I mean, come on. She's not going to go to Minnesota and start a 2-year program early. We like her. We want her to be home. Little did I know, God was planting a seed in a dad's heart. Okay? So we marched through the rest of the spring, and during the summer, she goes to a summer camp, and she wins an award called the Amy Carmichael Award. Does anybody know who Amy Carmichael was? A missionary to India. And we thought, oh, how wonderful, that's great. You've always loved India and other Asian countries, and you just won that award. What an affirmation from God. And at the same time, there was some mail that she got while she was at camp, and one of them was an offer for a scholarship to go to YWAM's program that fall. YWAM is Youth with a Mission, and we were literally asking Molly, who did you know to ask to send this? I don't know. We don't know where this letter came from, but it had a scholarship attached and an invitation to go to their discipleship training school that fall in Fort Worth, Texas. So now Molly's got the bug. She just won the Amy Carmichael Award. She got this letter, and she's like, I'd like to check this out. And as a dad, I'm thinking, uh-oh, things are falling apart around me. My daughter can't leave this fall. She's got to be here for her senior year. I'm just not emotionally prepared for this. So I take her. I say, if she's going to go to Fort Worth, I got to see these people, meet them face to face. So she and I make a trip to Fort Worth. We meet the people. It's a small group of like 10 people. We meet the church that's sponsoring this. And I come back from that trip and talk to Rachael, and I'm just thinking, are we prepared for our daughter to not be with us her senior year? Oh, and by the way, after the disciple training school in the fall, she'll be going to India for 3 months. Oh, God, this is not what I signed up for. Maybe later, but not now. And the rest is history, as they say. She went to the school in the fall. December 2nd of that year, she got on a plane with the cohorts, with the team, and they flew to India for 3 months. She was not with us. She was with us for Thanksgiving, I believe, but she was not with us for Christmas, New Year's, or the several family birthdays that we have in February and March. And at the end of March, and we're only getting contact with her once every 3 weeks, maybe, when she's in some dirty cafe that's got Wi-Fi. And he's just like, oh, she's here, she's online, quick, let's talk to her. It was a long 3 months with very little interaction between. When she came back, at the very end, she actually contracted E. coli, and she was not feeling good. She was in bad shape physically at the very end. You could tell. She had been in a country where she hadn't taken very many baths or showers, and Rachael took care of her, got her back up to snuff. But one interesting, just one of those surprise blessings that happened along the way is my 2 younger boys were in Taekwondo at the time. And their master was from India. And so he contacted his brother and said, hey, just so you know, I got a family whose sister is in India. And he told us, oh, she got to meet my brother in India. And I'm thinking, aren't there like millions of people in one city there? How's this going to happen? And I still don't know the story. I wasn't there to make it happen. But this gentleman, somehow in a mass of people, found my daughter literally on the streets of whatever the big cities are there, and gave her 2 customized black belts to give to my 2 sons from India. It was just one of those surprise blessings. But here's the real message. God made all that happen. He made everything from moving my heart, moving Rachel's heart, preparing us for a daughter to be gone her senior year, because that's what God was putting on her heart, that call to be a missionary. And so we did things that we never expected, that we could have never orchestrated, that we weren't pursuing, because God was in control. And we learned again to rely on Him for all the results. All right, and this last story I'll tell you is about primarily my youngest son, Benjamin, who's the one in the white shirt. That's Joseph and Benjamin with me in the middle. And that picture's taken in October of 2020. So at the end of the COVID year, that first year. So when COVID began, my boys, who were in high school at the time and doing their soccer programs, thought, oh no, what does this mean for soccer? Surely we'll play soccer. Well, they finished up a spring season, we were doing a spring season. Matter of fact, the very last game they played was in D.C. We're driving home, and then they shut down the rest of the program, the rest of March and April that existed. So then they're asking, surely we'll play this summer. And there was questions. We didn't know which leagues we're going to play, and people were fumbling trying to figure out what to do. We narrowed it down to 2 leagues that looked promising, but it was just kind of like flip a coin. We don't know. They don't really know what they're going to do. We picked one. Turned out they played during the summer and the other did not. Now, I don't know if anybody did any summer sports in 2020, but it's kind of silly watching boys play soccer wearing, the diaper chin, the chin diaper. They had to have a face mask on, but it's on their chin because otherwise they can't breathe. They're running around sweaty, playing soccer, bumping into each other. I won't go into all those stories, but the point is, they got on a team that actually played. And at first they thought, they didn't realize, because they were young, they didn't realize this is stupid, we don't really want to be on this team. And we kept telling them, gosh, you're playing. Be grateful for that. Well, we got to the end of the season, and they had an okay season, got to play a few other teams. And there was this tournament in Xenia, Ohio. Does anybody know where Xenia is? Okay, suburb of Dayton. And I grew up in Akron, but I only know Xenia from tornado that happened when I was growing up. That's my memory of Xenia. So I'm thinking, Xenia, Ohio, why is this? And the NCSAA is National Christian School Athletic Association Tournament. So they have this big tournament of Christian schools in Xenia. And the boys said, Dad, we finished the season. We did fine. We don't want to drive all the way to Xenia for some stupid tournament that we're going to come in last place with all these professional high school teams. You know, we don't want to do that. I was like, well, but if, look, we're a small team. Let's just go. You know, we'll figure it out. So we go up there, and beautiful fields. We meet some folks. There's a few scouts there, but they weren't worried about that. They had gone to what's called ID camps where soccer players get recruited. And turns out they win the stinking tournament. Okay? And get, so you know, MVPs or conference players, tournament players of the week or something, but they did great. And suddenly we're driving home and say, Dad, we're so glad we came. This was awesome. But here's what I didn't know. I didn't know that one of the coaches there who was recruiting had an eye for both my sons. Now, Joseph had just committed to Union University to play, but Ben had not. And he's a really good player, but he was getting all these calls from Division III schools and schools we had never heard of and schools that promised him to play, but here's what you have to know about Ben. He doesn't want to be the best player on the team. He wants to be barely on the team and challenged by all these other greatness around him so that he can improve. That's how he's wired. So he's like, Dad, I don't want to go where I'm promised to start. I want to go where I have to earn a spot. So he's not real interested in all these other people. Well, suddenly, this coach calls and says, hey, I'd really like you to come check out Cedarville. And it's like, Cedarville, where's that? I've heard of it before, but we're just not familiar with it. Oh, it's near Dayton, Ohio. Dayton? Well, gosh, we were just there last October. And turns out we go there, and where does the Cedarville school practice? At the very fields that this tournament took place. He's there all the time. And so here's part of the story with Benjamin. We had already had all this experience with schools and gap year programs and colleges and vocational programs and online programs. And we thought we knew all the options. And yet suddenly, this brand new school, this brand new location shows up, not because we said, you ought to check out Cedarville. I hear it's a really good school. They came to him, God provided it. And when we went the very first time, honestly, it was the best college visit I've ever been on. So the first one was the worst. Cedarville was the best college visit we went on. And it met my son's 3 criteria. He wanted a strong Christian community, a good soccer program, and at the time, a good art program. He thought he was going to pursue art. He did that his first year, and he switched to psychology, and now he's like right up his alley. Athletic mental coaching is kind of his forte. So again, we didn't make this happen. And even as it was happening, I was kind of sitting back with my 26 years of homeschool experience and the last 15 helping my kids get to college, and I'm just watching this happen with Ben, thinking, wow, this is so cool that we get to watch God fill in gaps a school bus could drive through again. Oh, why did I ever doubt this would happen? Of course God is going to do this for us. And I love hearing other people's stories like this. And when people tell us their story, I just listen and marvel and am reminded that God is faithful. He loves you. He really does. He wants the best for you. And you know what? All the work he's given to you is a joy. And all the people he's given in your family, he gave you to love. And he wants you to rely on him for everything that's going to happen. So here's a verse that challenged me when we were somewhere in the middle of our homeschool journey, probably in the first 13 years. 2 Peter 1:3. His divine power has granted us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence. So here's the challenge for you. If you believe that, if I believe that as a homeschool parent, how would I feel if I said, you know what? This next school year, we're only going to teach the Bible. We're only going to teach Christ because this says that It'll give my kids everything they need for life and godliness. Sounds like I'd like that for my kids. So if I make sure they have that, and it might require that being the only thing we taught this year, would I be willing to do that? And that, I remember thinking through that somewhere around year 6, 7, or 8, and just challenging myself with, how important is this? How much do I actually believe that if I can give my kids the knowledge of Christ, they're set? Yeah, I want them to learn and love to read. Yeah, I want them to love learning. And I would say those are very important goals to shoot for. But ultimately, if I can teach them this, if I can teach them Christ, they'll have everything, they'll be set. They'll have everything they need, and God will fill in every gap they need. I'm going to say a prayer for us right now, and then I'll do the commercial after this. All right, God, I thank you for just the attention, the conversations that have been happening before and after tonight, and just through this whole week, for the friendships that are being made, and for how you're opening all of our hearts to hear what your word has to say, and to let Dr. Malachi examine us closely so that we can remove all blind spots and we can be prepared to be healthy spiritually, especially in our homeschool journeys. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so we want you to have the most successful, Christ-centered, and satisfying homeschool experience. Apology is known as the #1 publisher of creation-based science, math, and Bible. And I was having a conversation with somebody one night at dinner, I think it was, about how the demographics of homeschooling has changed considerably. About 20 years ago, 3/4 of homeschoolers identified as Christian. Before COVID, about 2/3. And then there were a whole bunch more new homeschoolers that came into the mix, which is great, but now only about half of homeschoolers identify as Christian. So you can see there's a trend going on where there's fewer Christians, more secular. One thing that publishers of curriculum have done in response is they've created a secular brand. Basically, they kind of scratch out God and Scripture and anything to soften it because there's this whole new market available. Here's Apologia's stance. We're creation-based, and we're going to stay that way, but here's my dream. My dream is that in the past, when a Christian had to take an evolutionary science book and kind of mark out the evolutionary stuff, because that's not what you believed, but it was a good science book, now the tables will be turned, and people will be homeschooling, and they'll hear that apology is the best science to get, the best math to get, the best Bible to get, so they get the chemistry book, the biology book, and they find God in there. The gospel ends up getting shared, heard, and believed because we didn't compromise and create a secular brand. So I want you to pray about that dream of mine, that it can actually be just an amazing thing that happens in this growing homeschool population. So places you can go on our website, apologia.com/science. You see that one, at the other slides, /math or /, I never know which direction it is, and /Bible. And remember, this Saturday, if you haven't got your name in the bag, make sure you get it on an index card, name, cell number, and email. Get it in the bag, and Saturday during the session, we'll pick the grand prize winner that gets the whole Bible curriculum set. We got the podcast, Let's Talk Homeschool. So if you listen to podcasts, listen to that. Every Monday we drop a new episode. And I mentioned the Homeschool Boot Camp. This is, again, apologia.com/boot camp. It's free, 12 videos that you can do in any order at your own pace to kind of help you wherever you might be. Maybe you're high school. One of the sessions is how to do high school. I think I mentioned that we did the first one in 2020. This is version 2. And one of the changes we made based on feedback is we added 3 new sessions. One for homeschooling special needs, one for homeschooling as a single parent, and one for homeschooling as a working parent. And so we got 3 great interviews with parents that are in that situation that hopefully will encourage you and help you. And then, of course, here's the last slide with all the websites conveniently located. So great being with you tonight. Tomorrow we'll do the letter T. Saturday we'll have Rachael on stage with me again, and we'll do the back and forth. Good being with you tonight.
All right. Well, you are dismissed. Remember, we got bingo tonight. Where's Pat? He's probably pulling numbers already. But I was thinking that you cannot, when Davis was talking, and I hate it when the pastor gets up and re-preaches a sermon, right? But you cannot control everything. But here's the thing that you need to add is prayer. Right? And sometimes you're so busy doing everything that you forget the prayer. I pray for my kids, and my kids are all grown and gone. I pray for my kids and my grandkids all the time. I spend a ton of time on my knees, right? And so if I would encourage you to think about what he said tonight, but prayer for your kids goes a long way, right? All right, have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, we'll see you. Bingo.